The Twilit Era by E.H. Amos. I was born possessed by the gods of sky, betrothed in my mother's womb into the everlasting feud between the two all-powerful gods. I was a gift to day, given against my will upon my birth by the sodality of firmament. I was promised to night before my conception, my mother's last-ditch effort to ensure my life went to the concord of gloaming. I was never born with a will of my own. Every important choice I have ever made was discussed inside my head by the invisible presence of night and day. They have ruined my life and the life of almost all I interact with. I am not cursed, I am the embodiment of curses. I am not blessed, I am divine. I am the sworn avatar of opposites and symbol of both hope and futility to those who worship one half of me and see the other as the ultimate evil. I start fights in the streets of the city by walking down the road. Some wish me dead, some wish for my ascension, and arguments about how to kill one half of me and save the other have the concord and sodality killing each other and their own. I looked up at the sky. Day was giving way to night and twilight was finally upon me. I left, slipping through the city gates in a hooded robe, and made for the grassy knolls just outside the city's wall. I felt the two gods stirring inside me, ready to be released from my body for only a few precious moments when the sky belonged to each in equal measure. I ran, ignoring the hitches in my breath and the pain under my ribs. I ran, away from the city until I could no longer feel its presence looming over my every move. I wanted a single day, just one, where I didn't have to listen to night bicker with day. But I didn't have that luxury. Until the day I picked a side or died, it would always be the two of them fighting over me. I couldn't even remember a single day of my life where I didn't hear them fussing over me or belittling each other or fawning over each other. It was confusing, and it was getting old. I took my shoes off, settling my feet firmly into the soft dirt underneath the grass. The emerald stalks caught the twilit sky and shaded the field to clover. I dropped the hooded robe, stripped bare, and walked to the top of the hill. I leaned back, pointed my chin towards the sky, and took a deep breath. I exhaled, slowly, and felt the infinite void of night mingle with the all-knowing light of day as each rode my breath out of my body and into the sky. I collapsed, lightheaded, and looked up. Standing over me were the outlines of two slender people. Their bodies were fit, but not muscular, smooth, but not curvy, exuding both feminine and masculine figures. They wore no clothes, but there was nothing to hide. Their bodies were smooth, featureless windows into eternity. Night's skin was a window into stars and a swirling group of lights and clouds of unnatural misty colors. Night lifted one bare foot from the grass and began to float above me. She was a living rift, a portal to another world beyond this one that moved of its own accord and was shaped like a person. The outline of her body moved, but the window into the stars did not. Day was much the same, but his body was a window of infinite earth and sky. There was no hint of a sun above or land below, just a never-ending pastel sky dotted with occasional clouds reflecting the coral void. "How long do I have to listen to your whining tonight?" I asked after catching my breath. "You could choose one of us," Night said, reaching out to hold Day's hand. "And put an end to this," Day finished, with an identical voice, taking Night's hand. Night looked down at their hands and smiled at Day. She put a hand on his chest and slid it up, over his left shoulder and to the back of his neck. Night let go of Day's hand and the two embraced in a passionate kiss. The moment was brief, and the pair suddenly began shoving each other away, waving and kicking as if their very touches inflicted immeasurable pain. Night floated in a perfect arc to my left, while Day mirrored her on my right. They scowled at each other over me. It was my fault. I am the living embodiment of the divide between them. I wanted to walk away from all this, to just abandon it, but that just wasn't an option. "Did either of you know it was my birthday?" I asked. "Of course we know," one of them said, but neither of them moved their mouths, gestured, or had audible voices. The words simply rang in my mind. "We are you," the other said, I think. I couldn't tell their voices apart, or who had begun to transmit their thoughts into my own during the slight pauses. And you know what we know. So we know what you know. I coughed up a mocking laugh. I don't know shit, I said, gesturing into the twilight sky rather than at either of them. Not about the two of you. You never tell me anything. I just hear you calling each other beautiful and then calling each other awful names. I talk and you don't listen. I try to get along with you and you just pretend I'm not here. The only thing you see is a choice to be made, but what about the person underneath the choice? Answer me this. Do I want a cake spotted inside with sliced strawberries and frosted with cream? Do I want a pie full to bursting with blueberries and steaming hot with a glass of cool milk? The cake, Day said. The pie, Night said. Neither of you know, I shouted. You're just guessing. It's just another game to you. And I know that you don't know the answer because I don't know the answer. I've asked the two of you before which you think you prefer, and you didn't answer. You just antagonized each other, and then made up and did it all over again. Night broke her glare at Day first. She zoomed up next to me, still hovering over the ground, startling me in the process. She whispered in my ear, a cold chill accompanied by the faint sound of cracking ice. We should celebrate your achieving adulthood, so which one would you like? Day floated over to me, only far enough off the ground as not to crush any grass. He still made the walking motion and matched his speed with it. Why the secrets and whispers? He asked. Day leaned down and whispered into my other ear, a warm breeze that made the skin on my arms prickle, the consonants of his words hovering on the songs of thrushes and robins. Because she's up to no good. Let's go get that cake of yours. Can I please just have a birthday? I asked. Something that neither of you have to fight over to corrupt me? Look, Day said to Night. She has made up her mind. Corruption is not the way. She was talking about you, Night said. Both of you, actually, I tried to say, but they continued to speak over me. Corruption is inherently the domain of night. Where else would ne'er-do-wells practice their craft except in the cover of darkness? Day proposed, folding his arms over his chest. The very same place where your concord of gloaming cheated me of my avatar. I placed a proper claim on the moment of her birth. I did things the right way. I am her birthright, a compact sworn before her conception, Night responded as she stuck her hip out and rested her hand on it. And my domain is corrupt? Tell that to the men you appointed to run your grand sodality of firmament. Watch them eschew corruption in favor of sending your holy knights slithering through the sun-baked streets in the broadness of your presence. Watch as they invent problems that taxes could fix if only they were raised just a bit more. Watch them stealing not from the rich, but from the poor and homeless and struggling despondents who cry out to you each day with no response, I might add. Whoa, I said, widening my eyes and stepping back. You guys have issues. I got it. I pointed at Day. But no one stole me from you. Night smirked. I whirled around and pointed at her. And you! There is no laying claim on life before it has been created. Day puffed his chest out and nodded at my words. But there is also no laying claim on a life at all. One gives it. It does not abide by nature for another to take it. The two gods stared at each other without talking, their expressions muted. I felt an irresponsible pulse of pride fire through me as I cowed both of them. And another thing, I said, trying to keep the ball rolling. No, they both said at the same time as they came together in front of me. Day leaned back and floated into the air, his legs crossed and knees slightly bent. Night floated up and into his lap. They leaned their heads against each other, nuzzling and smiling. We are done, and so are you, Night said. You wish for free will to give yourself away? Day asked. They looked into each other's eyes, their foreheads and tips of their noses touching. Then choose, they both said without looking at me. I choose neither, I said. I don't want to give my life to anyone. I want to keep it. That isn't how this works, Night said, breaking her gaze with a deep sigh. Day looked at me and spoke softly. I am sorry, but forces beyond our control have bound you to one of us. Allowing you to choose is a courtesy we dearly wish not to mar. But whether we be gods of sky or not, a choice must be made. Please, young one. Night looked at me to finish Day's sentence. Do not force us to choose for you. I shivered, and my blood ran cold. These were gods. Gods! Right now they were arguing for their affinities, calling me to their side with promises and blessings each was capable of. They had done this my entire life up to today. They were being polite. I knew they could just as easily be tearing the world apart to force me into a decision. I don't want to, I said, desperation making my voice quake. I cleared my throat. I don't want to, I said again, with more bravado than I had. I don't understand why a choice must be made. Why can't someone else who wants it be chosen? There is day, Night said. And there is night, Day said. There is darkness. And there is light. Day flinched away from Night. She stood in the air and shoved him away in disgust. Or there is death, they said to each other. Day spun in a circle, tugging the light of the horizon free. It whisked about him like a ribbon, and he dropped to earth, finishing his spin. The ribbon of light collapsed into a sword as he hit the ground. There was a thunderous roar of the earth as it cracked underneath him in an outward spiral. The cracks were filled almost instantly with blooming flowers. Day stood and held out his sword. It looked like it was made of stained glass, portraying a fresh dawn. Night arched her back, exposing her chest to the open sky where the stars were beginning to move. A rain of meteorites left fiery trails in the sky as they dropped into her chest, first a few at a time, then there was quickly a torrent streaming into her. She dropped to the ground, a hand over her chest. When she pulled it away, a sparkling rope of stars came with it. She snapped it to her side, the tails of comets leaving streaks in the air where she swung it. At its tip, a nova lit up the hillside for a brief moment. It was a whip, most of it now rolled up on her fist. Wait, I called out. Why? Why are you doing all of this? Why must you oppose each other, even when you're in love? In the quiet whisper of a frozen breeze, Night's voice passed over me. It felt like death, like the last spasmodic shiver in the cold before your heart gives out. I do not love him. I wish there was someone else to love, Day whispered back. It was filled with the heat of a cloudless summer, of a blazing sun in a desert with no shade. Anyone else. But she is the only other. What happened to everyone else? I asked. There never were, they both said. They turned to face me, holding their weapons, but no longer ready to fight with them at a moment's notice. It has always been one or the other. And we despised each other from the very start. We were two different, eternal opposites, destined to fight until the end of time itself. Will one of you win if I pick a side? I asked. They looked at each other, hope and interest hiding in the recesses of their expressions. No, Night said after a pause that was too long. One of us could, but imagine being the only one left in the universe who can understand you. There is no more company. For eternity. An infinite solace with no opposition. My existence would be purposeless. You haven't, tried working things out? I asked. Day spit out a single laugh and Night began to smile again. Sure we have, Day said. We spent 16 trillion years at the speed of light itself, apart from each other on opposite sides of the galaxy. You find solace, peace, at least at first, and a curse when time never ends. We want to be touched, Night said, but my touch destroys everything with the chill of my existence. Everything except for Day. So no matter how much hate I have for him, he is the only one I can touch. And so we do touch, Day said, even when it repulses me. Her body is the only one I can illuminate that won't die from my radiance, and I tire of watching all life I make wither away under time's endless march. We do what we must for as long as we can stand it, Night said, her frown deepening. So what's the point? I asked. Neither of you will win a fight to the death. Why do you want me so bad if it's not going to tip the scales in your favor? Because she wants you, Day said, and I want to take that from her. And because he wants you, Night said, it is my duty to see he never has you. There was a moment of silence where my heart almost broke. Not for them, but for myself. Neither of you actually care about me, I realized out loud. I'm just another toy for you two to fight over until you accidentally break it. Break me. In the face of eternity, you'll forget I ever lived. And yet these precious few moments of your time are the only life that I'm given. And you want to take it away just to make each other mad. I am not ashamed, Day said. One of us speaks to you, Night added. The other argues against it. This is the only thing that matters. This is the only thing that never changes. If we agreed on one course of action, there may as well just be one of us. I closed my eyes and sighed. I felt the chilled hand of Night and the warm hand of Day on either shoulder, my flesh the only that could withstand their power. I propose a treaty, Night said. Day nodded. Day and I will leave you and this land for one lifetime of twilight. When we come back, Day said, you must choose one of us or watch us release our fury upon your people. Upon your world, dear child, Night corrected, like we have done to other beasts of the wild for millennia. Hope soared in my chest. Starting when? I asked. Day placed a hand on my head and ruffled my hair, his hands making my scalp too hot. I gritted my teeth and stood still. Night leaned down and gave the air just away from my cheek a kiss. Even without contact, the closeness still made my cheek ache with cold for a moment. Day and Night walked out in front of me, their weapons gone. They held hands and began to ascend. Forestaller of waning, Night said. Harbinger of ebbing, Day said. Queen of dusk, knower of dawn. They looked at each other and spoke at the same time. Hold our powers both and prosper. Tell your people to fear not this lifetime of twilight. While some lives may end before we return, remind your people that this is not eternity, for we will return. Our reunion will be upon this hill. Build us a palace here, fit for a choice to be made, and there, on that day, you will make it. Hate, Night said before she vanished into the sky. Love, Day said before he disappeared alongside her. The echo of their voices lingered for just a moment, speaking in unison one final time. Live a life worthy of a choice. And then, for the first time in my life, I collapsed under the unfathomable sound of complete silence. The first silent thought I had to myself, the first thing I dreamed about when they weren't here to ruin it, was of cake and pie. I think I'd like both, I said to no one. And to my relief, no one listened.